There are 5 pickup trucks sitting on dealer lots right now that mechanics are quietly steering their own families toward. And not a single salesperson is going to volunteer that information because the commission on these trucks is lower than what they make, pushing the ones everybody already knows. The first truck on this list is going to surprise you because it wears a badge that most truck buyers walk right past without a second glance. The last one, number 1, is the truck I have personally put more people into than any other vehicle in 20 years of turning wrenches, and every single one of them came back saying the same thing. Why did nobody tell me about this sooner? Today on Uncle's Car Garage, we are counting down 5 underrated used pickup trucks that deliver serious reliability at prices that make no sense once you understand what the data actually says. Let's get into it. Honda Ridgeline, 2017 to 2024. Let me tell you about the truck that every mechanic recommends to their own family and almost nobody else listens to. The Honda Ridgeline. And before you roll your eyes and click away, stay with me for 2 minutes, because what I am about to show you in real numbers and real ownership stories is going to fundamentally change the way you look at this truck. The Ridgeline gets dismissed constantly, almost reflexively, by buyers who have never spent a week driving one. They see the Honda badge on a pickup, their brain short-circuits, and they walk straight past it towards something with a more aggressive grille and a higher price tag. That automatic rejection is costing buyers $8,000 to $10,000 every single time it happens. And that gap, that irrational market penalty for wearing the wrong badge, is exactly the opportunity I am here to tell you about today. About 3 years ago, a painting contractor came into my shop driving a 2018 Ridgeline RTL that he used as his primary work vehicle every single day. This is not a guy who parks his truck in a garage and washes it on weekends. He loads it with equipment, drives job sites, hauls materials, and puts genuine working miles on it 5 days a week without apology. His Ridgeline had 172,000 miles on it. I put it on the lift expecting the usual high mileage wear patterns. What I found instead was a truck that was embarrassingly healthy for its mileage. Brakes recently serviced, engine clean internally. Transmission shifting through every gear with precision you expect from a truck with 40,000 miles. I asked him what problems he had dealt with over the years. He thought about it and told me he replaced the tires twice, did the scheduled maintenance, and that was essentially the entire list. He had owned 2 Tacomas and an F-150 before the Ridgeline. His exact words were that the Ridgeline was the first truck where the vehicle never became the problem. Everything else in his business could go sideways, but the truck always showed up. That is not a marketing slogan. That is a working man telling you what 172,000 miles of honest use taught him. Now let us talk about what is actually under the hood. The second-generation Ridgeline, running from 2017 through 2024, is powered by Honda's 3.5-liter V6, the J35 engine family. Naturally aspirated, meaning no turbocharger, no intercooler, no boost pressure to manage, and none of the additional failure points that turbocharged engines introduce. It produces 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 9-speed automatic and standard all-wheel drive across the lineup. The J35 has been in service across Honda's product line for years, appearing in the Pilot, the Odyssey, and the Passport, accumulating hundreds of thousands of real-world miles across multiple platforms. This is not a new engine being validated at the customer's expense. This is a proven powertrain in a truck body, and the ownership record reflects that. RepairPal lists the Ridgeline's average annual maintenance cost at approximately $550, below the midsize truck segment average. J.D. Power gave the 2025 model an 82 out of 100 predicted reliability score. Consumer Reports has ranked it among the top-performing trucks for long-term dependability year after year. The unibody construction is what sends traditional truck buyers running, and I want to address it directly. Yes, the Ridgeline is built on a modified Honda Pilot platform rather than a traditional body-on-frame architecture. Maximum towing is 5,000 pounds. If you regularly tow a large boat or a construction trailer, this is not your truck, and I will not pretend otherwise. But here is the question I ask every customer who cites towing as their reason for walking away. How many times in the last 12 months did you actually tow something heavier than 5,000 pounds? For the overwhelming majority of truck owners, the honest answer is never, or once or twice. The capability that drives the purchase decision almost never matches the capability that actually gets used. And in every area of daily use that most owners actually encounter, the unibody construction is an advantage. The fully independent rear suspension means no leaf springs, which translates directly into ride quality that is dramatically more comfortable than any body-on-frame truck in this class. Long highway miles feel different in a Ridgeline. Rough surfaces that hammer passengers in a Tacoma are absorbed and managed. Handling is more precise. And because the chassis is not flexing under load the way a body-on-frame truck does, the interior stays quieter and tighter over the long term. The composite bed does not dent under normal cargo loading, does not rust regardless of what gets hauled in it, and has zero wheel well intrusion, meaning a 4x8 sheet of plywood lays completely flat. The in-bed trunk, a sealed, lockable, drainable storage compartment built into the bed floor, is something no other pickup offers at any price. It holds a full-size cooler, a complete set of hand tools, or anything that needs to stay secure and out of sight. It is the kind of feature that becomes more valuable the longer you own the truck. Now, the numbers. A 2019 Ridgeline RTL with 60,000 miles is currently selling between $24,000 and $28,000. A 2019 Tacoma TRD off-road with comparable mileage commands $32,000 to $37,000. That is a gap of $8,000 to $10,000 for a truck that by every objective reliability metric performs at the same level or better across the use cases that most owners actually encounter. The 2018 and 2019 model years are the sweet spot. Issues from the first model year already resolved, strong reliability scores, and enough accumulated mileage history to validate the long-term durability picture. When inspecting a used Ridgeline, check the transmission fluid condition first. Dark or burnt-smelling fluid tells you immediately that scheduled maintenance was not a priority. Test the all-wheel drive on a loose surface and feel for smooth engagement without clunking. Open the in-bed trunk and check carefully for water intrusion or moisture damage, and examine the paint on the hood and roof in direct sunlight. A small number of owners in high UV climates have reported early clear coat issues, which is cosmetic only, but gives you legitimate negotiating leverage if you find it. The Ridgeline is the truck for anyone who has done enough research to understand that the badge on the grille tells you almost nothing about the engineering underneath it. The truck everyone is dismissing in the parking lot is frequently the one that outlasts everything parked next to it. Their loss, your gain. Nissan Frontier 2009 to 2021. There is a midsize truck that has been sitting at the top of reliability rankings for over a decade, and the average truck buyer has absolutely no idea it exists. Not because it is hard to find, not because it is expensive, but because Nissan never figured out how to make it cool, and in the truck market, cool moves units regardless of what the data says. The Nissan Frontier is the highest-rated midsize truck for reliability in its segment, according to RepairPal, scoring 4 out of 5 stars, which places it above the Tacoma, above the Colorado, above everything else in the class. Let that sit for a moment. The truck that nobody talks about is the truck that the data says you should be driving. And right now you can buy one for thousands less than a comparable Tacoma because the market has collectively decided that reputation matters more than engineering. That disconnect is your opportunity. Let me tell you about a customer who brought in a 2015 Frontier with the V6 a while back. He had 230,000 miles on it and wanted to know what major work was coming because he was trying to decide whether to keep it or sell it. I put it on the lift, checked compression, pulled codes, inspected the transmission fluid, went through the suspension, looked at everything I could look at. You know what I found that actually needed attention? Front wheel bearings. That was it. Everything else was original at 230,000 miles. Original engine, original transmission, original suspension components. He told me his maintenance routine was oil changes, brakes when they wore out, belts on schedule, and nothing else. No major repairs, no surprise bills, no roadside breakdowns. Just a truck doing exactly what a truck is supposed to do for 230,000 miles without drama. I told him to keep it. He looked almost disappointed, like he was hoping I would find something interesting. I did not. Here is what makes the Frontier's reliability story so compelling from a mechanical standpoint. The engine that powered these trucks from 2009 through 2019 is the VQ40DE, a 4-liter naturally aspirated V6. No turbocharger, no direct injection carbon buildup issues, no complex variable valve timing system requiring expensive maintenance. Just a naturally aspirated engine with a timing chain instead of a timing belt, meaning there is no belt replacement interval to manage and no catastrophic failure risk if that service gets missed. The VQ40DE produces 261 horsepower and 281 pound-feet of torque, returns fuel economy of around 15 miles per gallon in the city and 21 on the highway in 4-wheel drive configuration, and has been documented running well past 250,000 miles on nothing more than basic maintenance in the hands of owners who paid attention to their service intervals. Mechanics who work on these engines consistently report that the internal wear patterns at high mileage are remarkably modest, reflecting an engine that was engineered with generous tolerances and materials selected for longevity rather than cost reduction. The transmission situation on the Frontier reinforces the reliability picture. The 5-speed automatic paired with the VQ40DE is a conventional torque converter unit with a service history that spans hundreds of thousands of vehicles across multiple markets and years of production. There is nothing experimental about it, nothing cutting edge, nothing that is being validated in real time through owner experience. It is a proven unit that shifts predictably, wears gradually and honestly, and when it does eventually need service, responds to straightforward maintenance rather than requiring specialized equipment or dealer-only diagnostics. The manual transmission option is equally robust, with a mechanical precision that enthusiasts appreciate and a durability record that holds up under the kind of abuse that working trucks absorb over years of actual use. RepairPal puts the Frontier's average annual maintenance cost at approximately $470. Compare that to $547 for the Tacoma. That difference compounds every single year of ownership, and over 5 years of driving, it adds up to real money that stays in your pocket rather than going to a service department. The Frontier also ranks first in the midsize truck segment for reliability, according to RepairPal's scoring methodology, which factors in frequency of repairs, severity of those repairs, and average cost when something does go wrong. Winning that ranking against the Tacoma, which carries one of the strongest reliability reputations in the entire truck market, is an achievement that deserves more attention than it gets. Now I need to warn you about one specific issue that affects early model Frontiers, because if you are shopping the used market and you find a 2005 through 2008 model, there is something you need to know before you hand over any money. Those early second-generation trucks had an internal radiator design where the transmission cooler lines ran through the radiator itself, rather than using an external cooler. When the seals on that internal cooler eventually fail, and they do fail, coolant mixes with the transmission fluid. Mechanics call the result the strawberry milkshake of death. And that name is accurate because the contaminated fluid destroys both the radiator and the transmission simultaneously. Fixing it after the fact costs $5,000 or more. Preventing it before it happens costs around $200 for an external transmission cooler bypass kit. If you are looking at a pre-2009 Frontier, either verify that the bypass has already been installed or walk away. Stick with 2009 and newer to avoid this entirely, and you eliminate the issue from the conversation completely. The 2013 and 2014 model years are the sweet spot for used Frontier shopping. Consumer Reports gave the 2014 Frontier near-perfect reliability scores, and those years have now accumulated enough ownership history to validate the long-term durability picture with confidence. Pricing on these trucks reflects a market that has chronically undervalued them. A 2018 Frontier SV Crew Cab 4x4 with 65,000 miles is currently selling in the range of $16,000 to $19,000. A 2018 Tacoma SR5 with comparable mileage and configuration commands $27,000 to $31,000. That is an $11,000 gap for a truck that, by every reliability metric I can find, is every bit as durable over the long term. $11,000. That is not a small rounding error in the purchase price. That is a significant sum of money that the market is leaving on the table because the Frontier does not have the Tacoma's marketing budget or cultural cachet. When you are inspecting a used Frontier, focus on four things. First, if you are looking at a Pro 4X model, test the four-wheel drive system thoroughly on a loose surface and verify smooth engagement without any clunking or binding during transitions. Second, listen carefully at the exhaust manifold area during the test drive for any ticking or leaking, which is a relatively common issue on higher mileage examples, but an inexpensive repair and a strong negotiating point if you find it. Third, check the frame carefully for rust, particularly on trucks that spent time in northern climates with road salt exposure. The Frontier's frame is solid but not immune to corrosion, and a thorough inspection underneath the truck tells you a great deal about how and where it was used. Fourth, pull the transmission fluid yourself or have it pulled during inspection and look at the color and smell. Clean fluid on a high-mileage Frontier tells you the previous owner understood what they had. Dark burnt fluid tells you the opposite. The Frontier is the truck for the buyer who does the research instead of following the crowd, who looks at the actual data instead of the dealer's recommendation, and who understands that the best truck is not the one with the most commercials or the longest waiting list. It is the one that starts every morning, hauls what you need to haul, and sends you home at the end of the day without a repair bill. The Frontier has been doing exactly that for over a decade, while the market looked the other way. That is your advantage right now. And advantages like this do not last forever once enough people figure it out. Ford Maverick 2022 to 2024. There is a truck sitting on used lots right now in numbers that should make every smart buyer stop scrolling and pay attention. Ford built so many Mavericks and dealers ordered so many that the used market is currently swimming in them, and that oversupply is creating purchase opportunities that will not exist in 2 or 3 years once the market absorbs the inventory and prices normalize. Right now, a used Maverick with low miles is selling for thousands less than it should based on what it actually delivers. And the only reason that gap exists is because Ford flooded the market and buyers have not caught up to what this truck genuinely is beneath its compact exterior. This is not a compromise vehicle. This is not good enough for the money. This is a genuinely capable truck with a proven powertrain selling at a discount created entirely by inventory volume. And that is one of the cleanest buying opportunities in the used truck market today. Let me tell you about a customer I helped last spring. He came in wanting me to look at a 2020 Tacoma he had found at a dealership. It had 74,000 miles on it, and the dealer was asking $29,500. Base model, cloth seats, no meaningful features. I looked at the truck, looked at the price, and told him straight, for that money, you can buy a 2023 Ford Maverick XLT with the EcoBoost, all-wheel drive 22,000 miles, and still have $4,000 left over. He looked at me like I had suggested he buy a lawnmower instead of a truck. I walked him through the data, showed him the reliability scores, explained the powertrain, and he bought the Maverick. That was about 11 months ago. He sends me updates periodically. Not a single mechanical issue. He is averaging 28 miles per gallon in a vehicle with a truck bed. 28 miles per gallon in a truck. That number alone should end the conversation for anyone who drives significant miles annually and understands what fuel costs compound to over 5 years of ownership. Here is what nobody is telling you about the Maverick's mechanical foundation, because the surface-level conversation about this truck almost always focuses on its size and misses the powertrain story entirely. The 2-liter EcoBoost engine paired with the 8-speed automatic transmission is not an experimental combination developed specifically for the Maverick. This is a proven powertrain that Ford has deployed across multiple platforms and hundreds of thousands of vehicles over multiple years of production. The reliability data that exists for this engine and transmission combination comes from a broad base of real-world use across different vehicle types and operating conditions, which means the ownership picture is clear rather than speculative. Consumer Reports gave the 2023 and 2024 gas-powered Mavericks good reliability scores. J.D. Power ranked the Maverick above average for initial quality within its segment. Those scores reflect actual owner-reported data, not manufacturer claims, and they hold up across the model years that are currently populating the used market in volume. The hybrid version deserves specific attention because it represents something genuinely unusual in the truck segment. The 2022 through 2024 Maverick Hybrid pairs a 2.5-liter Atkinson cycle 4-cylinder engine with an electric motor system to produce a combined output that delivers over 40 miles per gallon in city driving. 40 miles per gallon in a vehicle with a truck bed. That figure is not a misprint, and it is not achieved under laboratory conditions. It is what owners are reporting in real-world urban and suburban driving, where the hybrid system's ability to recapture braking energy and run on electric power at low speeds delivers efficiency that nothing else with a bed can approach. The 2022 hybrid had some early drive system calibration issues that Ford addressed, and by the 2023 model year, those concerns were resolved. The 2025 model added hybrid all-wheel drive, which is what buyers had been requesting since launch, but the front-wheel drive hybrid in the 2022 through 24 range remains a compelling choice for buyers whose driving is predominantly urban and who can work within the front-wheel drive limitation. Pricing on used Mavericks right now reflects the inventory situation accurately. A 2023 Maverick XLT with the EcoBoost and all-wheel drive under 30,000 miles is selling in the range of $24,000 to $27,000 depending on condition and market. A 2023 Tacoma SR5 with comparable mileage is commanding $33,000 to $37,000. That is an $8,000 to $10,000 gap for a truck that, for the overwhelming majority of real-world use cases, commuting, errands, light hauling, occasional towing, performs the job just as competently. The math on that gap is straightforward. If you drive the Maverick for 5 years and save $8,000 on the purchase price, plus the fuel savings from averaging 28 miles per gallon versus the Tacoma's lower efficiency, you are looking at a total ownership cost advantage that is genuinely significant over the life of the vehicle. The bed situation is worth addressing directly because it is the most common objection, and it deserves an honest answer rather than a dismissive one. The Maverick's bed is 4.5 feet long, which is shorter than a standard mid-sized truck bed. If you regularly haul full-size sheets of plywood or long lumber, that limitation is real, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. But I will ask you the same question I ask every customer who raises it. How often do you actually haul material that requires more than 4.5 feet of bed length? For most buyers, the honest answer reveals that the bed size objection is theoretical rather than practical, and the Maverick's flex bed system, which includes multiple tie-down points and a configurable divider system, makes the available space more usable than a simple length measurement suggests. When you are inspecting a used Maverick, focus on 3 specific areas. First, test the transmission behavior in stop and go driving conditions, because some early EcoBoost examples showed low-speed hesitation and gear hunting at parking lot speeds. If you feel the transmission searching for the right gear during slow maneuvering, use that as a negotiating point or keep shopping. Second, go through the interior carefully and listen for rattles on rough road surfaces. The base trim levels used lighter interior materials and panel fit on early production examples was inconsistent, which is not a mechanical concern, but tells you how the truck was treated and whether the previous owner cared about maintenance as much as they cared about the interior. Third, inspect the bed carefully for signs of overuse. The Maverick's bed is constructed from high-strength steel and is genuinely durable, but a truck that was used far beyond its design intent will show evidence of that in the bed surface and the tie-down points. The Maverick is the truck for the buyer who commutes 5 days a week, runs errands, hauls bags of mulch and boxes of flooring on weekends, and occasionally tows a small trailer or a personal watercraft. It does all of that for less money up front and less money at the fuel pump than anything else wearing a truck badge. The only reason it is available at these prices is because Ford manufactured enough of them to create an inventory situation that benefits buyers. That is not a warning sign about the truck. That is a market condition created by production volume, and smart buyers recognize the difference. Ram 1500 2019 to 2023. If you want a full-size truck that rides like a luxury vehicle, tows like a workhorse, and sells on the used market for thousands less than it should, because of a reputation narrative that the data simply does not support, then we need to talk about the Ram 1500 with a 5.7-liter Hemi. This is the truck that depreciation forgot to be kind to, and that is entirely your advantage as a used buyer. The Ram loses value faster than the F-150 and the Silverado on paper, and that depreciation curve creates purchase opportunities that make experienced mechanics shake their heads when they see buyers walking past Ram lots on their way to pay a premium for a blue oval or a bow tie. The engineering underneath the Ram 1500 is not inferior to its competitors. In several measurable areas, it is superior. And right now, the market is pricing it like a consolation prize when the data says it deserves to be on the podium. I had a customer come in about 2 years ago who was convinced he needed an F-150. He had done zero research beyond knowing that his father drove F-150s and his co-workers drove F-150s, and therefore the F-150 was the correct answer. He wanted me to inspect a 2020 F-150 XLT with a 5-liter V8 that a dealer was asking $31,000 for with 68,000 miles on it. I looked at the truck, looked at the price, and then showed him a 2020 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab with the Hemi, 4x4, 63,000 miles, $26,000, sitting at a lot 4 miles away. Same year, comparable miles, $5,000 cheaper. He drove both trucks back to back. He came back to my shop that afternoon and told me the Ram felt like a completely different category of vehicle inside. Quieter, smoother, more comfortable on the road. He bought the Ram. 6 months later, he told me he could not understand why anyone paid more for the F-150. I did not have a good answer for him, because from a pure value standpoint, neither can I. Let us start with the powertrain, because this is where the Ram 1500 makes its strongest argument. The 5th generation Ram that launched in 2019 carries the 5.7-liter Hemi V8, an engine that has been in production in various forms since 2003. Over 2 decades of continuous refinement on a pushrod V8 architecture that mechanics have understood completely for generations means there are no mysteries here, no emerging failure modes being discovered at owner expense, no complex systems requiring dealer-only diagnostics to interpret. The Hemi produces 395 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, which is widely regarded across the automotive industry as one of the finest automatic transmissions currently in production, appearing not just in trucks, but in luxury vehicles and performance cars, where transmission behavior is scrutinized intensely by demanding buyers. The combination of the Hemi and the ZF 8-speed is the best part of this truck, and those are also the most expensive components to replace if they fail, which makes the fact that they routinely run past 200,000 and 300,000 miles on original internals one of the most important things a used buyer can know before writing a check. The pushrod V8 architecture deserves a moment of explanation because it is genuinely relevant to the long-term ownership picture. Modern engine design has largely moved toward overhead camshaft configurations with variable valve timing systems, direct injection, and turbocharging, all of which deliver impressive specifications on paper, but introduce complexity and additional failure points that accumulate over high mileage use. The Hemi is an overhead valve design, meaning the camshaft sits in the block rather than in the cylinder head. The valve train is simpler, the number of components that can wear or fail is smaller, and the engine responds to basic maintenance in a straightforward way that high mileage owners appreciate. There is no turbocharger to replace. There is no direct injection system creating carbon buildup on intake valves. There is no dual overhead camshaft system with variable timing actuators that require expensive service at specific intervals. There is an engine that makes its power through displacement and engineering fundamentals, and that approach has been proven across millions of miles of real-world use in Ram trucks specifically. The suspension system on the Ram 1500 is the detail that separates the ownership experience from every competitor in the full-size segment, and it is something that buyers feel immediately during a test drive, but often cannot identify specifically as the source of the difference. The Ram uses a multi-link coil spring rear suspension rather than the leaf spring setup found in the F-150 and the Silverado. That distinction translates directly into ride quality that Consumer Reports has consistently called the most comfortable of any full-size pickup available, and that assessment holds up across multiple years of testing with multiple reviewers in real-world conditions. The coil spring multi-link setup absorbs road surface irregularities with a compliance and sophistication that leaf springs simply cannot match, and the difference is immediately perceptible to anyone who drives both configurations back-to-back on real roads rather than a smooth test track. RepairPal gives the Ram 1500 a 3.5 out of 5 reliability rating and ranks it 3rd out of 19 full-size trucks in their scoring system, placing it solidly above average for the segment. I want to be honest with you about where the Ram's reliability picture has historically been less clean than the powertrain story, because this is the information you need to shop intelligently rather than enthusiastically. Ram has had a history of electrical system complaints that Ford and General Motors have not experienced at the same frequency. Infotainment system behavior, specifically the Uconnect touchscreen responsiveness and occasional freezing, has been a recurring theme in owner feedback across multiple model years. Some examples also showed evaporator issues affecting air conditioning performance, and a smaller number had coolant leak complaints centered around the water pump area. None of these issues is catastrophic in the way that a transmission or engine failure is catastrophic, and none of them compromises the fundamental powertrain durability picture that makes this truck worth recommending. But they are real, they show up in the data, and knowing about them before you inspect a specific truck gives you both a checklist and negotiating leverage. Current used market pricing on the Ram 1500 reflects the depreciation curve that works in your favor as a buyer. A 2020 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab with a Hemi 4x4 configuration and 65,000 miles is currently selling in the range of $25,000 to $29,000. A comparable 2020 F-150 XLT with the 5-liter V8 and similar mileage commands $28,000 to $33,000. You are saving $3,000 to $5,000 and receiving a more comfortable ride, a more refined interior experience, and a powertrain combination that has the same long-term durability ceiling as anything in the segment. When you are inspecting a used Ram 1500, run through this checklist before committing. Test the Uconnect infotainment screen during the test drive by using every function and watching for lag, freezing, or unresponsive inputs. A screen that misbehaves during a test drive will not improve with ownership. Run the air conditioning on maximum for several minutes and verify that it reaches and maintains cold output, because evaporator issues manifest as reduced cooling capacity rather than complete system failure. Look carefully under the truck at the water pump area and the surrounding coolant hoses for any staining or residue indicating a slow leak. And take the truck on a highway and accelerate from 50 to 70 miles per hour, feeling for smooth transmission shifts and listening for any drivetrain vibration that could indicate drive shaft or differential wear. The Ram 1500 Hemi is the truck for the highway commuter who tows on weekends, the buyer who spends enough time behind the wheel to genuinely value interior comfort and ride quality, and anyone who understands that engineering determines reliability rather than brand loyalty. The badge on the tailgate does not tell you how the engine was built. The data does. And the data on the Ram 1500 Hemi says this truck will haul, tow, and run for 200,000 miles and beyond if you maintain it properly, and by a good example to start with. At current used market prices, it is one of the strongest value propositions in the full-size truck segment. The market has not figured that out yet. You just did. Chevy Colorado 2015 to 2022. There is a midsize truck that General Motors built with genuine capability, solid engineering, and a reliability record that holds up under scrutiny, and the market has collectively decided to ignore it in favor of paying a $10,000 premium for a Tacoma. The Chevy Colorado sits in the Tacoma's shadow not because it is inferior in any meaningful, measurable way, but because Toyota's marketing machine and the cultural momentum behind the Tacoma badge have created a price gap that defies the actual ownership data. That gap is the opportunity. Right now, a used Colorado with a 3.6-liter V6 is sitting at dealers and private sellers across the country at prices that make no sense once you understand what you are actually getting under the hood and underneath the frame. Buyers who do the research instead of following the crowd are driving away with capable, comfortable, reliable mid-size trucks and keeping $8,000 to $10,000 in their pocket that Tacoma buyers handed to a dealer without questioning whether the premium was justified. I had a customer come in last year who had been using a 2019 Colorado Z71 with a 3.6 V6 as his daily driver and weekend truck. He towed a 16-foot boat regularly, used the bed for landscaping materials, and drove highway miles 5 days a week for work. He had 127,000 miles on it and came to me not because something had gone wrong, but because nothing had gone wrong, and he was starting to wonder if he was missing something. He told me he figured at this mileage there had to be something coming. I put it on the lift and went through everything methodically. Brakes were sitting at around 40% remaining. Transmission fluid looked clean and within normal parameters. No fluid leaks anywhere on the drivetrain. No stored fault codes. Suspension components showing normal wear without any urgent replacement needs. I told him to change the transmission fluid as preventive maintenance, schedule a brake service in the next 15,000 miles, and come back when something actually needed attention. He almost seemed let down. He had been bracing for a significant repair bill and left with a fluid change recommendation. That is the Colorado story in one appointment. The engine at the heart of the Colorado's reliability case is the 3.6-liter V6, which produces 308 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. That output figure matters in context because it exceeds what the base four-cylinder Tacoma produces and sits in comparable territory to some full-size truck configurations from just a few years prior. Maximum towing capacity with the V6 reaches 7,000 pounds, which covers the overwhelming majority of what mid-size truck buyers actually tow in real-world use. The 3.6 is a direct injection engine, which does introduce the intake valve carbon buildup issue that affects all direct injection engines over time. But this is a known and manageable maintenance item rather than a catastrophic failure risk. An intake cleaning service at around 60,000 to 80,000 miles addresses the carbon accumulation before it affects performance, and the cost of that service is factored into the total ownership picture without dramatically changing the value equation compared to competitors. The 8-speed automatic transmission paired with the 3.6 V6 is where the Colorado's history requires honest context, because the early second-generation trucks from 2015 and 2016 did experience transmission shudder complaints that generated real owner frustration and legitimate concern. General Motors addressed these issues through a combination of software recalibration updates and revised transmission fluid specifications, and the fix proved effective on the vast majority of affected vehicles. From 2017 onward, the transmission behavior improved substantially, and the complaints that characterized the early model years largely disappeared from owner feedback and reliability surveys as the corrected calibration accumulated real-world mileage without recurring problems. If you are shopping a 2015 or 2016 Colorado, the first question you ask is whether the transmission fluid has been changed to the updated specification and whether the latest software calibration has been applied. If both have been done, the truck is worth considering. If neither has been addressed, negotiate accordingly or move to a later model year where the issue was resolved from the factory. The 2017 and newer Colorado represents the version of this truck that mechanics recommend without qualification, because the early transmission concerns are behind it, and the underlying platform has proven itself across enough accumulated mileage to give the long-term durability picture with confidence. The Z71 off-road package deserves specific mention because it adds meaningful capability without the price premium that Toyota charges for comparable Tacoma off-road variants. The Z71 brings skid plate protection, an off-road tuned suspension with increased ground clearance, hill descent control, and a locking rear differential that provides genuine traction in conditions where two-wheel drive trucks surrender. A used Colorado Z71 with the V6 delivers real off-road capability at a price that routinely undercuts a comparable Tacoma TRD off-road by $8,000 or more. And the capability gap between them in real-world off-road conditions is considerably smaller than the price gap suggests. The ZR2 variant takes the off-road conversation to a completely different level and represents one of the most undervalued used truck opportunities in the current market. The ZR2 comes equipped with Multimatic DSSV dampers, which are the same damper technology used in professional racing applications and deliver both superior off-road wheel articulation and better on-road ride quality than conventional shock absorbers. Front and rear electronic locking differentials provide traction capability that most off-road trucks at any price cannot match. The ZR2 is legitimately one of the most capable off-road trucks available, regardless of price point. And because it wears a Chevy badge rather than a Toyota badge, used examples sell for significantly less than a TRD Pro Tacoma with inferior off-road hardware. That price gap for superior capability is one of the clearest examples of badge premium distorting the used truck market in ways that benefit informed buyers. Current pricing reflects the value opportunity accurately. A 2019 Colorado Z71 V6 with 70,000 miles is selling in the range of $20,000 to $24,000. A 2019 Tacoma TRD off-road with comparable mileage commands $28,000 to $32,000. $8,000 separates those two trucks in price, while the actual capability and reliability data separates them far less dramatically. Over 5 years of ownership, that $8,000 difference, combined with lower insurance costs and comparable maintenance expenses, represents a meaningful total cost of ownership advantage that compounds quietly in the background while both trucks do essentially the same job. When you are inspecting a used Colorado, work through 4 specific checkpoints before making a decision. First, check the transfer case fluid on 4x4 models, because neglected transfer cases are the most common issue that shows up on higher mileage examples, and the fluid condition tells you immediately whether the previous owner understood what they had. Second, test the infotainment system completely during the test drive, because early Chevy MyLink systems can develop lag and unresponsive behavior that is irritating to live with daily and difficult to resolve without significant cost. Third, inspect the frame carefully for rust, particularly on trucks from northern states or Canadian markets where road salt exposure is significant. General Motors improved their frame coating application over the production run, but early examples in harsh climates can show corrosion that warrants close attention. Fourth, take the truck onto a highway and accelerate from 50 to 75 miles per hour, feeling for smooth, sequential transmission shifts and listening for any drivetrain vibration that could indicate worn driveshaft components or differential wear patterns. The Colorado is the truck for the buyer who wants genuine midsize capability, real towing numbers, and proven long-term reliability without paying the Tacoma tax that the market currently imposes on buyers who shop by reputation rather than by data. 20 years from now, the people who bought Colorados at current prices and drove them properly will look back on this market window as one of the cleaner used truck buying opportunities they encountered. The Tacoma buyers will have paid their premium and gotten a reliable truck. The Colorado buyers will have gotten an equally reliable truck and kept the difference. Both trucks will still be running. Only one group will have kept $8,000 in their pocket to show for the decision. So there it is, 5 trucks that dealer lots cannot move fast enough and mechanics cannot stop recommending to the people they actually care about. The Honda Ridgeline that every mechanic puts their own family into while the parking lot crowd keeps laughing at it. The Nissan Frontier sitting at the top of every reliability ranking while the market keeps sleeping on it. The Ford Maverick delivering 40 miles per gallon in a truck bed while buyers keep overpaying for the badge next to it. The Ram 1500 Hemi riding like a luxury vehicle and selling like a consolation prize. And the Chevy Colorado doing everything the Tacoma does for $8,000 less, because the market decided reputation matters more than data. If this video saved you from an expensive mistake, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling Uncle's Car Garage which one you would take home, and share this with someone who is about to hand a dealer $10,000 extra for a name. See you in the next one.